They say I stood above the flames, playing my lyre while Rome burned. They say I sang of the fall of Troy while mothers searched the smoke for their children. That I smiled, that I watched, that I did nothing. History has repeated that story for nearly 2,000 years. Long enough that people no longer ask whether it is true. Tell me, if the world you spent your life ruling suddenly burst into flames, what expression would satisfy history? Would terror make me innocent? Would tears erase suspicion? Or did the world simply need someone to blame and find comfort in believing the emperor was mad? Tonight, forget the legend. Listen instead to the thoughts of the man standing inside it. I remember the smell, not smoke. Panic. Smoke burns your lungs. Panic burns your judgment. Messengers arrived breathless. Their horses collapsed before they did. The fire. That was all they managed to say. By then, it had already outrun every bucket, every soldier, every order I could give. People imagine fire as a wall. It isn't. It hunts. It leaps from roof to roof as though the wind itself has chosen a side. Rome was the greatest city on earth. It was also one of its most fragile. Millions admired her temples. Few noticed the maze hidden between them. Narrow streets, crowded tenements, wooden balconies hanging over one another like dry branches waiting for a spark. One careless flame, and the city became its own fuel. That night, Rome was not defeated by an enemy. Rome was defeated by the city Rome had become. Do you know what haunted my mind as I looked toward the horizon? Not poetry, not music. The streets. Those cursed streets. I had walked them. I had seen families packed into buildings that leaned against one another as though exhausted. Merchants stored oil beside timber. Workshops kept furnaces beneath wooden roofs. Every summer, the city held its breath. The Senate spoke endlessly of tradition. Tradition, a beautiful word, until it becomes an excuse to change nothing. I wanted wider roads, more open spaces, stronger construction, stone where there was wood, order where there was chaos. Do not misunderstand me. I was no humble servant. I enjoyed beauty. I dreamed of monuments. I wanted Rome to inspire awe. But what use is grandeur if the city cannot survive a single night of fire? Sometimes I wonder whether my greatest failure was believing reason alone could persuade men who profited from leaving everything exactly as it was. Then came the whispers. Whispers travel faster than flames. Nero wanted a new Rome. Nero wanted room for a palace. Nero started the fire. Interesting how quickly tragedy becomes accusation. Fire has no face. An emperor does. Perhaps you have already decided what you believe. Perhaps you imagine I watched from a balcony, calmly playing music. A curious image, especially since the instrument people accuse me of playing had not even been invented. Did I love music? Yes. More than many thought appropriate for an emperor. I performed before audiences. I competed in festivals. The Senate despised it. To them, an emperor should conquer kingdoms, not applause. Every ruler possesses a flaw. Mine was caring too little about what powerful men thought of me. And powerful men rarely forgive humiliation. Power teaches you an uncomfortable lesson. People do not remember your explanations. They remember your failures. If a harvest is plentiful, the gods are thanked. If the harvest fails, the emperor is blamed. So imagine what happens when half the capital disappears beneath smoke. Do you believe any speech could calm them? Would evidence matter? Would logic? No. Grief does not seek understanding. It seeks certainty. Someone had to carry the weight of Rome's suffering. I wore the crown, so naturally, I wore the blame. History remembers the rumors. It remembers them far better than the response. When the flames spread, I opened my gardens to those who had nowhere left to sleep. Food was brought in. Shelter was organized. Grain prices were reduced. The homeless filled places once reserved for imperial leisure. These are not glorious acts. They are simply what had to be done. Could I save everyone? No. No emperor commands the wind. No decree outruns fire. Leadership is not measured by preventing every disaster. Sometimes, it is measured by what remains after disaster has already arrived. When the fire finally surrendered, Rome looked unfamiliar, gray, silent, broken. People saw ruins. I saw responsibility. Should we rebuild the same narrow streets? The same crowded alleys? The same wooden traps waiting for another spark? Or should tragedy teach us something? New building regulations were introduced. Wider streets, greater spacing between structures, more stone, less timber. Some called it ambition. Others called it vanity. Perhaps it was both. Every ruler leaves fingerprints upon his city. Mine happened to follow catastrophe. Does that make catastrophe my design, or merely my inheritance? History seldom pauses long enough to ask. There is one accusation I will not escape. The persecution. A small religious movement. Christians. Rome demanded answers. Fear demanded punishment. Whether I believed they caused the fire, or whether I allowed public anger to choose its own victims, the result was the same. People suffered. People died. Power often convinces itself that sacrificing the few will calm the many. Power is often wrong. If there is one decision that deserves judgment, perhaps it is not the legend of the liar. Perhaps it is this. History is complicated enough without inventing crimes where real ones already exist. Years passed. I died. Others wrote my story. Most had never stood where I stood. Many hated me long before the fire. They described a monster, mad, cruel, laughing as Rome burned. Perhaps that version was easier to remember. Heroes are comforting. Villains are unforgettable. Complex men are inconvenient. And history, like theater, prefers a simple script. So, what was I actually thinking while Rome burned? Not that the fire was beautiful. Not that suffering was necessary. Not that destruction was glorious. I was thinking, this should never have happened. I was thinking of streets that had grown too narrow, buildings raised too carelessly, warnings ignored too often. I was thinking that by morning, no speech could restore what had been lost. Only work, only rebuilding, only time. You may still believe I lit the fire. You may believe I watched it with delight. That is your choice. But before you condemn a man by a story repeated for centuries, ask one question. Who first told that story? And who benefited from telling it? History is not always written by the victors. Sometimes, it is written by the survivors. And survivors rarely tell stories without choosing a villain. If that villain must be me, then at least remember this. Rome did burn. Thousands truly suffered. And long after the flames disappeared, the story burned even longer. Perhaps that was the fire no emperor could ever extinguish.